You wanna know who I am? Folks call me the Bone Man. Ain't my real name, but it's the one that's stuck. Tonight on Requiem Radio, we traveled to the forests of southern Poland, where there was a man who bent sound like it was wire and twisted it into screams. He molded music into ghosts. Penderecki, composer, maestro, and maybe, just maybe, a medium for the dead. What you're about to hear ain't in no textbook, but once you hear it, you'll never listen the same way again. Tonight's story is called Echoes of Silence.
I first heard it at night. Not music, exactly, but something coming from under the floorboards of my Warsaw apartment. It was like violins scraping from within the walls, and too atonal, too mournful to be mice. It began after I brought home the vinyl, Threnody to the Victims of Hiroshima, Penderecki's infamous piece for 52 string instruments. I'd found it in a dusty crate at an estate sale, left behind by a dead radio engineer who once worked for Polski Radio. The album looked ordinary. The sleeve bore Penderecki's scrawl's signature in red. But the first time I dropped the needle, the air changed. Everything did. The strings rose in discordant shrieks. At first, it was just unnerving, but soon it became unbearable. I couldn't sleep, not because of the music, but because of what followed it. Every night, after I played that piece, the apartment would fill with sounds like whimpers, knocks, and distant crying that didn't belong to the building, or even this century. And always, that scream from the Threnody would echo again, when the room should have been silent. I reached out to others. A musicologist in Krakow told me Penderecki had called his work a warning, a scream from history. But he hadn't meant it figuratively. He once told a student that while composing the Threnody, he felt something enter the room with him, like standing in a cathedral built of smoke. He said, like voices were watching me write them down. There are also plenty of stories. Some said that during rehearsals for the Polymorphia, all the lights above the orchestra shattered while dogs outside the studio howled in unison. Others said that once, while conducting De Natura Sonoris, Penderecki collapsed, whispering in Russian, which was a language he did not know. Still, I kept listening. I began recording the silences after the vinyl ended, and that's when I heard the voices. They were not in a human language, but something else. It was choral fragments rising out of white noise or the shape of grief etched in static. I brought the recordings to a sound engineer who'd restored some of the archival tapes from Auschwitz. He turned pale. He said the frequency patterns matched the distortion found in survive interviews recorded in the late 40s. There's something burned into this, he said. Not data, but memory. I asked what I should do. He just said, "Don't play it again. Some music's not meant for the living." But of course I did. That last time, I swear the room went cold. Not cold like weather, but cold like absence. Like a vacuum had swallowed the warmth, the windows fogged from the inside. My cat arched and hissed at the empty corner, and then the needle lifted itself. I stood there not breathing as the record spun in silence. And that's when I heard it, a child's voice, whispering, not Polish, not Japanese, just one word: remember. I left the apartment that night and never went back. But sometimes, when the wind blows hard enough, I swear I still hear that same unearthly string cluster in the trees, like the forest is playing itself in grief. Penderecki's gone now, dead and buried in Krakow. But I don't think he's really resting. Some music keeps playing, long after the composer is gone, and some of it is heard in the silence between the sounds.
You've been listening to Requiem Radio, where music bleeds into the supernatural. And that was Echoes of Silence. Some say the dead speak through seance. Others say they speak through song. But maybe, just maybe, they speak loudest through silence. Ain't gonna be no more tonight. Y'all rest easy, and don't let the dark drive you home.